Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private.
Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. My name's Oliver and I'm a former alcoholic and addict now in recovery. The Recovery Cast is a podcast created by people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction, for people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. This podcast is meant as a support tool for those in recovery. Everyone who participates in the podcast is in an active recovery program. Now, we are not affiliated with any one recovery methodology and will focus on a variety of different types of recovery, including 12-step recovery, otherwise known as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and other things like Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Recovery Dharma, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, and more. And a quick disclaimer, this podcast is intended to be informative. A podcast alone cannot support your sobriety and recovery, so we suggest it only as one component of a daily recovery routine. For more information on what recovery is, please go to www.rehab.melbourne. We have a really interesting episode planned for you today. I'm going to touch on a couple of really interesting topics. The first one is the reading of today, which is November the 22nd, and we're reading from the Just for Today Narcotics Anonymous Daily Readings book. It's entitled Foundation First. As we begin to function in society, our creative freedom helps us sort out our priorities and do the basic things first. Basic text, page 86. No sooner do we get clean than some of us begin putting other priorities ahead of our recovery. Careers, families, relationships. All these are part of the life we find once we've laid the foundation of our recovery. But we can't build a stable life for ourselves before we do the hard, basic work of laying a recovery foundation. Like a house built on sand, such a life will be shaky at best. Before we begin putting all our attention to rebuilding the detailed framework of our lives, we need to lay our foundation. We acknowledge first that we don't yet have a foundation, that our addiction has made our lives utterly unmanageable. Then, with the help of our sponsor and our home group, we find faith in a power strong enough to help us prepare the ground of our new lives. We clear the wreckage from the site upon which we will build our future. Finally, we develop a deep working familiarity with the principles we will practice in our continuing affairs. Honest self-examination, reliance on our higher power's guidance and strength, and service to others. Once our foundation is prepared, then we can go full steam ahead to put our new lives together. But first, we must ask ourselves if our foundation is secure. For without our foundation, nothing we build can stand for long. Just for today, I will take care to lay a secure foundation for my recovery. Upon such a foundation, I can build for a lifetime in recovery. Just reading that actually brings to mind a few sort of points that I can make. I think many of us will know what it's like to try and jump straight into recovery without a foundation. Perhaps it's not our first time in recovery, perhaps we've tried before. I did. I tried before and I didn't last long. So what I was doing in those early days before I found a 12-step program and before I sort of had a really good go at recovery and accepted treatment, I just didn't change my life. I just took the substances away and continued everything else as normal. And it was like a house built on sand. It was shaky and the house fell down. My recovery didn't go to plan and it didn't happen really. I didn't last. And it was just really stressful and a painful time. So what I really needed to do was, first of all, I think the first step for me was to accept that unmanageability. I realized that my life was completely unmanageable early on, and that's when I made the decision to go and accept treatment in a leading private rehab. And that sort of started work on the foundation, I think. That beginning opening statement is very important. The careers, the families and the relationships, the things that we are going to get when we have a strong foundation, we can't put them first. And I've heard it said before, whatever we put ahead of our recovery, that's what we will lose first. So I had to sort of put all those ideas and dreams and things on the back burner for a while. And what I did was I realized that my life was filled with unmanageability. There was a lot of disaster, a lot of difficulty, drama, problems and turbulence in my life. And I needed to go somewhere where I was removed from triggers in order to actually detox and get clean, whatever you want to call it. And that was when I was introduced to a 12-step program that was Narcotics Anonymous. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way for everyone, but it worked for me. That's all I can say is that's my experience. Find out what works for you. But basically, I think what's probably more important to say is that Hills and Ranges Private is a great place to start building that foundation. And I've seen guests at Hills and Ranges Private come in with that unmanageability, that difficulty, that drama, the pain that, addiction brings to our lives. And I see that foundation begin to be built. And that's what I did when I was in a rehab. I started to lay that foundation. What I built my foundation out of was a routine, a daily routine, which included recovery routine. I did lots of meetings, lots of NA meetings. That's my experience. I got a home group, which is one particular meeting each week that I definitely have to go to. And what that does is that just keeps me accountable that I have to go to that meeting, and I get to know people there, and I develop those sort of friendships with people that have similar experience that definitely have helped me along the way. Then the hobbies are really important, stuff to do that's, beneficial to me and not sort of a harmful, addictive behavior, something that maybe sport or exercise, or for me it was working on cars. And then self-care, so ensuring that I got enough sleep, ensuring that I was exercising, those sort of things. Then after that, I found a sponsor who was someone in Narcotics Anonymous who was able to take me through the 12 steps. That sort of came a little bit later, really. I just had to get that routine and hunker down and stick with the routine. Those were the ingredients for my early recovery. And when I sort of started working that out, what I found was, what did I find? I also found a higher power, which it's sort of a bit of a taboo concept, really, especially for people in early recovery, because I've heard people say that early recovery and a higher power doesn't work. Sometimes that's true. For me, I just had to realize that I needed to put my faith in a power that was strong enough to, as it says, help me prepare the ground of my new lives. So I'm not running the show. Something's guiding me. Something brought me into recovery, and I'm just going to let that point me in whatever direction I need to go, and I'm just going to put my head down and do what I need to do today. That's how it worked. And that sort of, all of that stuff cleared the wreckage on which I was going to build my future. It's really cool what I found and what it says in the reading. It says, once our foundation is prepared, then we can go full steam ahead to put our new lives together. It's interesting because I didn't have that experience. I didn't have the experience of putting my new life together myself. All I did was focus on my foundation, focus on doing the stuff that I needed to do to stay in recovery one day at a time. And the foundation just floated into my life without any of my own doing. Things just happened and fell into place. And when that happens to me, I know that I'm doing the right thing. When I am working a really strong recovery program and looking after myself and looking after my recovery, then everything is so easy that all those external things, the car, the house, the job, the partner, the relationships, the friendships, all that stuff literally landed in my lap. I am astounded. Now that I think about it and I'm actually acknowledging that, I'm astounded that all those things happened for me. You could say that it was the result of a higher power's work in my life. I mean, you can believe that if you want to. Although I do have a higher power and all that stuff, I actually just believe that it was because I got out of my own way. I stopped creating my own problems and I started taking responsibility for my actions. All those things. When I was in active addiction, I was tripping over my own feet. I was creating problems for myself. I was really sabotaging myself out of any kind of opportunity for like work or relationships or stable accommodation. It was just all thrown under the bus because all I cared about was using. Now, when I care about my recovery and I care about doing those things and the principles that they talk about, which for me are honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, service to others, so helping other people, getting out of my own head and doing good things that make other people feel good, make me feel good, make the world a better place. And it just gives me a sense of humility, of quiet appreciation for my life and gratitude for what I've got. That when I'm doing all those things, I'm literally not creating more problems for myself and things just come along. When people can see that I'm doing well and I am doing well for myself, then job offers come up, things just land in my lap. I save enough money to buy a nice car. I move in with the partner, someone that I love and care about. So that's just a little bit of insight into what that foundation was like for me. What is that going to be like for you? I think that there will be people listening who are in early recovery who are doing that work on their foundation right now. And I just want to say, well done, because it's the biggest thing that I've ever done in my life. And I'm really amazed and astounded that people can do that continually, to keep accepting that help and being honest with themselves and doing all that stuff. Keep working on that foundation, and my experience is that it works. It really does work, and it's amazing what can happen. Now, after the break, I'm going to be talking a little bit about people in our lives that we are grateful for. Stand by.
You're listening to the Recovery Cast by Hills and Rangers Private. Now playing daily on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. For more shows, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.
So we're talking about people in our lives that we are grateful for. Now, what I've realized is that I can be going through my life and focusing on building up my foundation and all the things that I've literally just talked about to you guys. And I forget something that's really, really important. Sometimes when I'm literally all I'm focused on is myself and the work that is required to all of that self-inquiry, that fearless self-inventory of working out, well, what was I doing in my life to make putting a drug in my system or a substance in my system, whatever it is, what was I doing? Why was that happening? How can I fix that? All those things. There's so much self-investigation and so much self-reflection that I forget about other people. And I was just reading, some recovery literature, and there was a post about people in our lives that we are grateful for. And I've got a list of 8 people in my life that I'm really grateful for. My circle is quite small these days. I have a lot of very close friends, and the amount of people that I know and just sort of have in my life has actually shrunk, which is nice in a way for me. I feel like it's very simple, and I have my connections with people that I love and people that love me. And that's what I want to talk about, really. People who stand by me. People who through my active addiction and also in my recovery actually have stuck with me the whole time, whether that was really like physically where I was living with them, or they drove me to rehab, or they stood by me and made sure that I had somewhere to come home to after I left rehab. Those people, but it's also the people who were just in the background, who were on the other end of the phone when I needed to talk, and people who really I was on the other end of the phone for if they needed to talk. That's a skill that I've learned in recovery, is that I can also listen to. I've got my immediate family, my partner, some NA friends who I've grown close to through my regular attendance of meetings, people that I meet who I have some, maybe there's hobbies in common where I go into a meeting and you know, someone sees me pull up in my car and they like my car and we talk about cars, because that's a hobby of mine. Or musicians in recovery, you know, that's another great thing too. And just people who have a really strong program that I've gravitated to, of like, I like your recovery, I'm going to ask you questions and be friends with you. It's really special stuff. And then there are those old friends, the ones that kind of have been there for a long time, that haven't necessarily drifted away through my active addiction. Maybe they weren't close enough to witness it all, but they're just there. And all of these people on my list are either in recovery, or they don't enable me, they don't trigger me, they don't, you know, if I go over to one of my friends' houses, they don't start drinking alcohol around me, or they don't start using drugs around me. They're all people who, shall we say, they're normies, you know the kind of people, the people that don't have that issue that I have. And it just so seems that the people that I'm grateful for are all like that. People that, and all of these people also call me out on my mistakes. They don't just say, "Oh, well, you're in recovery, you've had a hard time with addiction, I'll let you behave in that way, even though it's not acceptable." They're actually people that are like, "Hey, Oliver, that was not cool." My partner always calls me out on my mistakes, and I'm learning to be a partner. I'm learning to be in that relationship, and I'm learning to be that good boyfriend with someone who doesn't just let me walk all over them, or let me get away with all this stuff. They actually hold me accountable, as I learn to hold myself accountable in recovery. That's really important. In the beginning, in my early recovery, I made a lot of those mistakes because I wasn't actually accountable. I'd been sort of blaming others for my own problems and my own actions my whole life. And all these people actually also, they give me a chance to prove myself. The people in my life that I'm grateful for have given me a chance to prove that, yes, although I have lived experience with addiction problems, that I am actually more than just an addict. I'm more than just an addict in recovery. I'm more than just a former alcoholic. I am a person, and I'm learning to live this productive and wonderful life. They give me a chance to live that life. And I think the reason they do that is because, you know, they love me for who I am, and I love them for who I am, whether that's a partner or a family member or a very dear friend. There's that connection. And I think those people in my life, the reason why they're in my life is because they are like that. I don't have time or room for people who maybe they want me to be someone else, or I want to be someone else around them. I don't have time for that anymore. I literally just work on being myself and have these pure, supportive people in my life. And whether they're from a 12-step fellowship, there are a lot of those types of people in 12-step fellowships because they've done that hard work. But they're also those special family members. And look, not all of the family members in my life are like that. I have to pick and choose who I hang around with these days. But I think now that I've done that work on my foundation, and I put my foundation first, I put my recovery first, the friendships and the connections with people literally just come along because people gravitate to me when I'm doing that good work. When I'm working on my recovery, I am easygoing and relaxed and calm and easy to be around and joyful to be around. So that's just a little bit of an insight into, I personally think, what's on offer in recovery. Whether you're in early recovery or you're a year or 18 months, or maybe you're not even in recovery yet, maybe you're looking at it from that other side like I used to. It's worth it. And it just takes that foundation we need to build. Everything else comes along. Those friends, the people we're grateful for come along. And let me tell you, I'm really, really grateful for them. All those things are on offer, and Hills and Ranges Private is one of the ways that we can make that first step and begin to heal from that addiction, from that chaos that I used to live. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. It's a very broad topic, but it's very, very important. And I think just for today, work on that foundation. Do something to strengthen your foundation in recovery. That's what I did, and I found that my foundation is rock solid and I'm able to face everything in life that life throws up. I'm able to face it and I'm able to survive and stay in recovery. Never thought that was possible. So until next time, cheers, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Recovery Cast. For more, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.